Okay, this month's movies are The Witch of King's Cross and The Love Witch. But before we dive deeper into that, I want to quickly thank Rev Kai for supporting this channel in today's video, which is sponsored by them. Rev Kai is a specialized astrologer and diviner with over 25 years of experience. They provide a strategic blueprint for your life using little-known medieval and Renaissance astrological methods gleaned from recently discovered manuscripts. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, Rev Kai offers regular forecasting for the month or year ahead, so you always know exactly what's coming. They even specialize in deep dive services like identifying your innate magical skills and uncovering the name of your natal genius. For major events like business launches or weddings, they use electional astrology to find your window for success. And if you've never known your birth time, Rev Kai's rectification service can find it for you, giving you an accurate map to work with. They also help people build sustainable connections through ancestor veneration and spirit communication, sorting through lineage and tradition with confidence. Now, Rev Kai is offering a special 20% off for my viewers. So visit revkai.com and use the secret password Midnight Hair when you book your initial consultation, and stop guessing and start navigating with precision. The link and the password are in the description. Okay, so to the movies. Now, before I get started with this review, I just want to mention that for anyone who thinks that Crowley was so controversial, let's just say he was a baby compared to Rosaline Norton. All right, so let's talk about The Witch of King's Cross, because this film feels more like a spell than a biography. If you come to this documentary expecting a neat, sanitized portrait of an eccentric artist, you're in the wrong temple. What you actually get is a confrontation with one of Australia's most infamous occult figures, Rosaline Norton, and by extension, a confrontation with society's deep discomfort around female power, sexuality, and magic that refuses to behave. The film positions Norton not merely as an artist who dabbled in the occult, but as a genuine magical practitioner whose life was inseparable from her spiritual worldview. That's important. Too often, figures like Norton get reframed as symbolic or psychological or performative, as though their magic was metaphor rather than practice. This documentary doesn't fully fall into that trap. Instead, it allows the occult to remain occult, strange, unsettling, and unresolved. What really stands out is how Norton's devotion to Pan and to a lived embodied paganism is treated with seriousness rather than mockery. Pan isn't presented as a quirky aesthetic choice or an edgy persona. He's central to her cosmology. The film makes it clear that for Norton, Pan represented raw nature, ecstatic sexuality, and a refusal to submit to moral frameworks imposed by church or state. It's devotional. And here's where the occult angle really shows itself. Norton didn't just believe differently, she lived magically. Her art, her rituals, her relationships, and her public defiance of censorship laws were all expressions of a unified magical identity. The film shows how this refusal to compartmentalize magic is precisely what made her so threatening to the society that was trying to quiet her. She wasn't hiding her witchcraft in private journals or coded symbolism. She was open, explicit, and unapologetic. The documentary does a good job of showing how the legal persecution she faced wasn't really about obscenity. It was about control. And a woman claiming sexual autonomy, magical authority, and spiritual legitimacy outside Christianity was intolerable in mid-20th century Australia. From an occult perspective, this is textbook witch hunt logic, not medieval but modernized. Courts replace inquisitors and censorship laws replace scripture, but the underlying fear is the same. What I appreciated most is that the film doesn't reduce Norton to a victim narrative. Yes, she was persecuted. Yes, she was marginalized. But she was also powerful, stubborn, visionary, and deeply committed to her path. There's no attempt to soften her edges to make her more palatable to a modern audience. If anything, the film allows her contradictions to remain intact, and which feels totally honest. That said, the documentary occasionally pulls its punches. For viewers steeped in occult practice, there may be moments where you want to go further, deeper into ritual mechanics, deeper into her magical philosophy, deeper into how she actually worked. The film hints at her practices more than it dissects them. This makes it accessible, but it may leave seasoned practitioners wanting more grit. Still, the emotional and magical undercurrent is strong. You get the sense that Norton was not interested in converting anyone or founding a movement. She wasn't trying to be a guru. She was doing something far more dangerous, living her truth as though permission was irrelevant. And that, arguably, is the most potent form of magic there is. From an occult lens, the Witch of King's Cross functions almost like a mirror. It asks the uncomfortable questions: how much of your practice is still shaped by fear or exposure? How often do we self-censor to remain acceptable? And what would it actually mean to live magically, not just ritually? This isn't a film about spells and sigils as Hollywood likes to present it. It's about embodiment, transgression, and the cost of sovereignty. Rosalie Norton comes across not as a curiosity of occult history, but as a warning and an invitation. The warning is clear: power will always attract backlash. The invitation is quieter but more dangerous. Stop pretending your magic is symbolic and start asking what it demands of your life. If you're interested in witchcraft as a lived current rather than an aesthetic, this film is absolutely worth your time. It won't give you instructions, but it may remind you why you walked this path in the first place. Now let's talk about The Love Witch, not just as a movie, but as a cinematic spellbook. On the surface, it's a vivid, stylish throwback to 1960s Technicolor thrillers and horror romances, but beneath that retro veneer lies something much more interesting: a portrayal of witchcraft that feels both earnest and disturbingly incisive. Right away, you notice the aesthetic. Director Anna Biller didn't just mimic the look of vintage film, she incarnated it. Every frame is composed like a painting, every color screams with intention. It's not just about the nostalgia. The style is part of the spell. It's almost as if the film's visual language primes your psyche for magic, seduction, and archetype. The colors aren't decorative, they're a vibration. In the center of the psychedelic incantation is Gillian Jacobs' character, Elaine. She's often described as a love witch, a practitioner using magic to attract romantic and sexual partners, and through her we get the film's core occult theme: the tension between desire, autonomy, and consequences. Unlike the predatory character or caricature of witches in much of pop culture, Elaine practices a form of witchcraft that, on the surface, is about empowerment and connection. But the Love Witch isn't content with surface illusions, it's probing deeper questions. What happens when desire becomes a weapon? When love is no longer mutual but enforced? And how do spiritual practice and psychological need become entangled? It's easy for viewers to interpret Elaine's magic through a Wiccan lens, and the film seems to invite that. Hers is not a toolbox of hex signs and pentagrams hidden in shadows. It's overt, aesthetic, ritualistic. There are altars and flower petals, candles and incantations. There's a sense that ritual is real, that intention matters, even if the results are chaotic and morally ambiguous. In that way, the film resonates with many modern practitioners who see witchcraft as lived theology, not just superstition. Academic and spiritual commentators have noted that The Love Witch taps into a kind of pop feminist witchcraft, one that's about reclaiming agency in a world that historically not denied it. But the film doesn't let us off the hook with simplistic empowerment. Elaine's path is tragic, her magic dangerous, not because it's inherently evil, but because desire unchecked can become destructive. Her spells don't result in harmony, they result in obsession and ultimately death. Her actions are most likely a result of the abuse that is subtly hinted at, abuse at the hands of the high priest that performed what appears to have been her initiation. I say that because she clearly didn't want it, and she went on to become psychotic. Now, some viewers from pagan and Wiccan communities have praised the film for its or aesthetic authenticity, not their theology, and that's important. The rituals in The Love Witch feel like they have texture, herbs, breath, bodies, symbols that are felt. They feel like something you could touch. But others have criticized the film not for leaning into stereotype, that witches as seductive femme fatale is just another trope repackaged in pastel. There's truth in both readings. The film is at once a celebration of feminine magical power and a critique of the way desire can be commodified and mystified in modern spirituality. Let's just say it has many layers. From a stylistic standpoint, what makes The Love Witch feel occult isn't just the props and incantations, it's the way Biller uses sound and pacing to create a liminal space, a world that feels familiar but disturbingly unreal. Music swells at moments of ritual, dialogue lingers in uncomfortable silences, and the camera holds close on eyes that seem to be portals rather than mirrors. It's almost hypnotic. Watching it is less like consuming a story and more like participating in one. There's also the performative quality to the witchcraft here. Elaine's magic has a flamboyance, a theatricality that reflects her inner psychology as much as any spiritual doctrine. It touches on something many occultists recognize, that ritual isn't just about results, it's about identity. Magic works on the magician as much as on the world. But The Love Witch pushes that further. It shows what happens when identity and illusion merge so completely that your practitioner loses themselves in the spell. Critics have compared this film to everything from hammer horror to feminist cinema to camp art. All of those comparisons hold, but they miss something deeper. The Love Witch isn't just playing with genre tropes, it's interrogating the cultural fantasies around femininity, power, and agency. In occult circles, witchcraft is often discussed as a tool for transformation. Here, transformation happens, but it's destabilizing, not transcendental. For a viewer interested in witchcraft as a lived, breathing practice, the film might feel symbolic rather than instructional. It's not offering rituals you can replicate, it's offering a mythic psychological landscape that resonates because it's honest about shadow. Elaine is sympathetic and catastrophic. She's sorceress and symptom. She reminds us that magic, like desire, isn't neat. It doesn't obey ethics, diagrams, or moral binaries. It obeys intensity. And that's why this film sticks with you. It doesn't let you safely admire a witch. It forces you to reckon with witchcraft as something unpredictable, charged, and deeply human. In a culture still uneasy with women's power, mystical, sexual, or creative, the Love Witch cuts with a blade disguised as a rose. So, if you wander into this film expecting light entertainment, be prepared to encounter something heavy, beautiful, and strangely true. It's a meditation on magic, not a manual, and not all meditations are comfortable, but the ones worth experiencing really are. That brings us to the end of this month's movie reviews. Hope you enjoyed those. Let me know if you've seen the films and what you thought of them. Alright, I'll see you next time. Cheers for now.